Maji hata hatuna. Tukurudi nyumbani hakuna kitu tunakula.
Tuko wengi, watu wengi hata inaweza rudi tu kuna kitu sote imeisha.
60 years after independence, no Kenyan should be dying of hunger.
A lot of Kenyans say we are not doing much, same story, same cycle every time.
Six-year-old Akalale Osibo carries what remains of her once flourishing greenhouse, which she used to grow tomatoes and watermelons. Some years ago, when the Kenyans for Kenya Red Cross irrigation project was set up near her village in Nanikomet, Kaikor, Turkana North. Akalale, now a mother of 3, was among the 32 beneficiaries of the 32 greenhouses set up under the Kenyans for Kenya Food Security Initiative in 2011 as one of the worst droughts devastated northern Turkana. It was the worst drought in 60 years to have hit the Horn of Africa. Akalale counts herself lucky. She was among 300 residents of Kaikor in Turkana North who survived as death encircled her home between July and November 2011. About 3.2 million people were in desperate need of emergency food assistance. As the situation turned dangerous, the Kenya Red Cross launched an urgent appeal for 4.9 million Kenyans battered by the drought. Akalale lost the family's herd of 36 goats and 12 sheep to the devastating drought and ventured into crop production, part of efforts under the Kenya Red Cross Food Security Project to cushion them from ruin, and launched right at the footstep of a Nakinomet village.
Vile shamba hii ilikuja hapa hivi tulikuwa tunakula vizuri. Walileta hata maji. Tukakula basi hiyo chakula. Vile hiyo shamba vile ilienda sasa njaa basi ikakuja kwetu.
Now this project that was meant as a lifeline for about 300 to 350 households in Nakinomet village in Turkana North sits fallen after strong winds swept away the structures. Now all that's left are these metal rods and broken down water pipes, and another stinging reminder of just how much the Kenyans for Kenya initiative became a cropper.
Hakuna kitu kingine nafanya kwa hapa saa hii. Machuma tu ndio hii amesimamisha tu hapa. Hakuna chakula, hakuna nini. Mustuni amenjanga kwa hapa tu.
It started in about 3 centers. One in Longolemwar, one in Kaikoria, Kangitula and Loitant. So it picked, in fact it brought fruits. These fruits were even taken to Lodwar. But sometimes back again they said they handed over to the county government, of which we don't know up to date. There's nothing that has been done by the county government. I don't know if there is any other measures which have been put in place to see if these people will have to continue with their agriculture, because we see this is an agriculture whereby it is sustained as a livelihood of these people.
This metallic rod represents the state of what used to be 32 active greenhouses in this particular area for agriculture production. But since the collapse of the Kenya for Kenya initiative, the over 300 households in this particular area have now reverted to pastoralism as the only meaningful source of income. Ikal Angelei, whose organization, Friends of Lake Turkana, played a key role in distributing relief food for the over 200,000 affected people, says the community wasn't fully involved in the food security projects.
But sadly, what happened was the rush meant that a contractor was gotten to come and set up the shade nets and greenhouses, because in fact the setup was really shade, like the whole greenhouse setup to produce tomatoes and all this produce. When you're producing food in this place, first you've not taught the community how to set up, and a lot of boreholes in Turkana, if you look at, there are about 100 plus boreholes in Turkana that were sunk by donor money. But because it was sunk without engagement of the community, without any understanding of how they manage it, repairs, rehabilitation, all these things. So once it stops working, you hear communities saying, project here. So it's either for World Vision, a county government, so they blame it on where the money came from. It's no longer their project because they don't own it and they're not involved as should be.
Ekwe Ethuro, who at the time was the Turkana Central Member of Parliament, also agrees that there was no public participation.
The community did not own the projects. And I think many development paradigms have always put emphasis on that instead of involving the community. And involved community means actually mobilizing them, letting them identify their priorities, and feeling that what is being implemented is what they actually decided. Then you go the next step of training them. Because some of those, you'll be shocked. Sometimes you'll go to a place, you find a borehole which has dried. And just because there is a rubber missing or something, some small things. These projects, they are more of demonstrations rather than actually an activity. For it to be an activity where the local can participate fully and actually have a bigger environment and a bigger catchment, you need to make sure that there is a more sustained period. It should not just be those 8 months we are talking about. It should be a number of years.
It's not one institution, it's not one level of government. I think this is where we are talking about a coordination and a contribution of everyone. Some of these projects, yes, you initiate, you start, you support, but you cannot be there forever to continue with them. Somebody else then has to take it on. So whether you're handing over to the county government or you're handing over to the community.
They have also put in place efforts in terms of pre-positioning and purchase of moving spare parts, so that they can be able to address and maintain the boreholes, to be able to get water to those water-stressed areas.
Up to date, people are really depending on the relief food. If there's no relief food, there's nothing which is taking place.
Twende shiko. 1, 2, 3. Tata mwe.
A few kilometers from Nakinomet, in Loitanit village, lies another worn-down Kenya Red Cross Food Security Initiative. 57-year-old Sheikh Ahmed, who has lived here since he was only 17 years, battled and survived the drought. But most of his livestock, a treasured source of livelihood, didn't. He thus took up farming under the Red Cross Food Security Initiative. It hasn't worked out for him either.
Mradi ya Red Cross kwa wakati huu haifanyi kazi. Kitambo kidogo ilikuwa inafanya kazi, neti ikaharibikia hapa. Alafu walituambia kama watatutengenezea, wamelete hizi vifaa ambaye mnaziona sasa hivi mbele yenu. Hizi zimekaa hapa miaka miwili. Hatujui ni nani amelete, ni Red Cross, ni contractor, sijui ni nani. Hizi vitu imewachwa tu hivi. Imekuwa manyumba ya manyoka. Si unaona? Tungetaka hii kitu ituwekewe sisi haraka iwezekanavyo. Kwa sababu sasa hizi unaona neti hizi imepigwa na jua, itatatuka tena kama hiyo nyingine kwa sababu jua si inaua, unajua. Vichuma ndio hiyo vile unaona. Tangi unaona. Tulikuwa nataka usaidizi tusapeletiwe maji ya kijiji na maji ya mali hiyo.
The development has got to be for the people, with the people. But we are always doing development for the people, and it's like we're throwing it at them, but not with the people. And it cannot be any development if it's not with the people. You ask the community right now, what is the price of the equipment? They don't know. Shed net, if you're using it, if it tears, wear and tear happens. This is 8 years later, 9 years later. Do they need to replace it? You know, if there is a problem with the generator, there's a consumption, there's a cost to fuel if you're using a generator. Who's paying for the fuel to pump it? Are they selling the produce?
This project had been done.
In a previous interview with NTV, the then Kenya Red Cross Society's Secretary General Mohamed Abbas defended the merits of the Kenyans for Kenya initiative's food security projects in Turkana.
Even KAIKOR is a success, or has been a success. KAIKOR was commissioned in 2012 or 2013. When it was done, we did 2 projects in KAIKOR. KAIKOR, for Kenyans who don't know, from Lodwar to KAIKOR is on the border with South Sudan and Kibish in Ethiopia. It's almost 300 or 400 kilometers by road from Lodwar.
From Lodwar?
Yeah,
that's really far.
You go that far. This project had been done. It was very successful. The Kenyans for Kenya committee, all the media owners, and this committee went to commission this project. It was water in 2 places, 4 boreholes. We drilled boreholes, 12 of them, and we got water only in 4 places. Those 4 places, the 4 boreholes were put together 2 and 2 to have 1 project here and 1 project here. Then we put in what we call shed nets for farming with drip irrigation. So water for animals, water for human beings, water for farming. This project ran for 4 years before they got to the situation which is today, or the state as it is today. We not only did the project and handed it over to the community and to the county and to John Muñez, who was then the area MP for that area. My role was to put the project in place, show it it's working, give it to the community. The challenge is we had one amount for investment. The money that we put in, and I said the 100 and whatever figure, and I can be very precise about it, that we put in, was in KAIKOR 121.3 million. That is what was put in. That project, 12 boreholes were drilled, okay? And 4 farms have been integrated using 4 boreholes, okay? Those boreholes that were drilled, no water, no water, no water. I would have to pay the contractor. So this is part of the audit I'm talking about. So those 4 boreholes had enough water. Today, as we talk now, there is water flowing in those areas. Animals are drinking water, human beings are drinking water. What is lacking now is the farm. Because the farm, we have to reinvest long term. I didn't have resources under K4K to go there and work there for the next 10 years, and there was funding to pay for that.
According to the Kenyans for Kenya Red Cross audit report, the initiative raised about 955,677,000 in cash and 277 million in kind. 353 million shillings was set aside for purchasing relief food and for water distribution, while 323 million was spent on long-term food security projects, such as the KAIKOR failed irrigation schemes.
I would say there was well for money. It's just that it was a drop in the ocean. Yeah, you need massive resources in order to turn around some of these regions.
It may not be necessarily misappropriation. It might be over-reliance on the crisis on the ground, that makes the community continuously vulnerable. And we see this. We see some have left because it's become harder to fundraise for Turkana now because, when you're saying the county government is getting 12 billion shillings, the county government should have addressed these things. And so the old sources, traditional sources where most of these donor organizations would get money from is reduced. Do we continue with this? Because then you would have salvaged the shed nets, all the equipment. You could easily have salvaged it and perhaps auctioned it, done something with it, or given to another charity, or had a deeper conversation with the county. Leaving it there did not help, because then the county has no obligation to take it, because then it is not their property. So everybody is like, si yangu, it's not my property, so everybody leaves it there. Even the community don't feel like it's their property because it's still under Kenyans for Kenyans. So the handover was done to the county government, not necessarily to the community. And if it was left to the community, who within the community is supposed to be running with it? If I'm a private entrepreneur there, can I take it as a member of the community? So that deeper conversation was never had.
For us, actually, with this situation that we find ourselves, and also maybe going forward and having very clear information in terms of what climate change is going to do to us in the coming years, it's about maybe looking at a number of these projects in their own right and being able to assess and see what needs to be done to maybe make them more productive. I think the challenge we have is that we also sometimes believe that everything has to work. And it may not be the case, just because there are other factors that maybe are compounding this. And so it's about then being able to realize that for those that we can revive, we need to revive. For those that honestly, there is something that cannot be fixed, rather than put in more money in something that is going to still fail, then you look for something different. So I think a bit more of a comprehensive reflection. But like I said again, it's not a one-person issue, because today, even as the Red Cross, you can go and say you're contributing to this particular initiative, but we cannot be there also throughout. So is the community ready to take that over? Is the county government ready to continue with this project? These kind of things I think are critical, that maybe it's time that we all, first of all, accept and appreciate that we each have a role, and then we come together and make that contribution.
Ah,